As we said before, no quid pro quo is dead. It's done, gone. After today's transcripts, Republicans can no longer use it as an argument, so rest in peace. So now the tiny, extremely thin read the president's defenders will argue is, okay, yeah, it was a quid pro quo, and that's fine because it was about corruption. The thing the Trump administration was trying to get was a commitment from Ukraine to look into corruption. Now, generally, that would be fine if it was generally corruption, and it's the last minor plausible argument they could conceivably make. But that argument is totally belied by the documentary evidence we now have before us. We know this from the text messages produced by U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Kurt Volker. Here's how the House Impeachment Committee characterized it. On August 12, 2019, a top aide of the president of Ukraine sent a draft statement to Ambassador Volker announcing an investigation without mentioning specifically Burisma, the company that Hunter Biden was on the board of for the 2016 elections. That actual statement reads in part, quote, "We intend to initiate and complete a transparent and unbiased investigation of all available facts and episodes." That was not going to cut it. So the next day, on August 13th, 2019, Ambassadors Volker and Gordon Sondland proposed to the top Ukrainian aide the statement also include two key items, Burisma and the 2016 U.S. elections. Here's their proposed rewrite. "We intend to initiate and complete a transparent and unbiased investigation of all available facts and episodes, including those involving Burisma and the 2016 U.S. elections." That proposed change, Burisma, the company that Hunter Biden had worked for, was going to get Trump and Giuliani what they really wanted, the ammunition of a public declaration by the president of Ukraine that would then drive news coverage, end up on the front page of all the big papers and be in big red breaking news banners on cable news. Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. That is what they were after. They were after that material aid to their own campaign. That is the tangible thing of value they were soliciting and extorting a foreign government for. Joining me now for more on that, Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, a member of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees who sat in on both of the hearings whose transcripts were released today. Do you think that proposed language from Sondland and Volker, specifically citing those two instances and the public commitment, are significant?
Well, sure. I mean, what we're getting here is a shift in the Republican position. Before they were saying no quid pro quo. Now their position is there was a quid pro quo and it was perfectly valid and legitimate, and that's in effect their defense. We know that this was much bigger than a quid pro quo, which implies something kind of consensual. It was a shakedown against the Ukrainian government. It was totally coercive pressure brought to bear on them in order to make them cough up the two things that they wanted from President Zelensky. They wanted confirmation of their paranoid, discredited conspiracy theory about the 2016 election. And then they wanted information about Burisma and the Bidens. And of course, no legitimate law enforcement inquiry or investigation had come anywhere near to verifying any of these things. And that's why they had to apply this coercive pressure to try to get a foreign government involved in our election, this election, the one we're having right now.
I want to read you more from the Kurt Volker transcript and Rudy's involvement. Rudy says, well, if it doesn't say Burisma, if it doesn't say 2016, what does it mean? You know, it's not credible. You know, they're hiding something. And so we talked and I said, so what you're saying is just at the end of the same statement, we just insert Burisma in 2016. You think that would be more credible? And he said, yes. So this is coming directly from Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, saying you have to cite these two things. And not only that, they had to do it on television. Is that your understanding of what the plan was?
Yes, the suggestion was it was all made for TV. Really, what the president wanted was to say that the Ukrainian government is investigating the Bidens because of X, Y, or Z, just like the Ukrainian government is validating our theory that Russia did not conduct a sweeping and systematic campaign to disrupt our election in 2016. Ukraine did. But you know what's so interesting about it is the Trump, Giuliani, and Fruman Parnas axis was waging war against our ambassador Yovanovitch, who was a real anti-corruption crusader. They wanted to bring her down precisely because she was really fighting corruption. They never raised corruption with Zelensky. They never raised any other episode of corruption. All they wanted to do was to go after the Bidens. And it's perfectly clear from the record there. And if they used the word corruption, all they meant by it was Burisma and the Bidens.
OK, so I have to admit, there's some confirmation bias on my part as I've been navigating all this and looking at the evidence as comes forward. I thought the call was quite damning. I thought that alone showed a kind of abuse of power, arguably on behalf of the president. But it does seem to me like, particularly with Sondland's reversal today, like the main facts feel fairly established. I mean, you haven't even started public hearings. There's a lot of witnesses out. There's still more documentary evidence the State Department isn't turning over. Where do you feel in terms of the completeness of the picture that you have as someone who's been sitting in these depositions?
The evidence is absolutely overwhelming. There is no contrary hypothesis about what happened, and our Republican colleagues are just shocked into silence. I mean, sometimes they'll go back to the conspiracy theory, which has been debunked numerous times about 2016, but they don't have any other way to explain what happened. And, you know, we have officials in the Trump administration, like Chief of Staff Mulvaney, who've essentially confessed to it and bragged about it. I mean, you know, in a lapse of candor, he decided to go on TV and say, yes, of course, this is how we operate with the quid pro quos. The problem with this quid pro quo was that it was a shakedown to get another government involved in our campaign. That's precisely what the Mueller investigation was about. But apparently, the president felt as if he'd gotten off scot-free there. Remember, he was chanting that he'd been exonerated and there was no collusion and no obstruction, which is not what is in the real Mueller report. But in any event, then the very next day, after Mueller's appearance before the Judiciary Committee, he decides to go down this other road and to bring Ukraine into the 2020 election.
All right, Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.